The opinions and suggestions expressed on the following program are solely those of the participants and not necessarily endorsed by program sponsors or any radio station, media company, or platform broadcasting this program. The following program is a product of Causeway LLC. The information in this broadcast is not intended as investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, Causeway LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program is not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, Causeway LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk.
Government officials will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
Welcome to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore, the Bitcoin-focused radio show that's waking the masses to the fiat money Ponzi scheme. Money is changing, and your freedom is at stake. So stick around and learn how to empower yourself for this new digital age. Now, here's your host, Matthew J. Moore.
Welcome, America, and welcome, world. No matter where you are or what you're doing, or hey, I don't care who you are or what you believe, this show, we made this for you, and you are going to learn something today because I want to welcome all you Bitcoin lovers, newbies, and experts. We've got just a little bit of everything, but you are now listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. And yes, if you've heard the news, we are one of the only syndicated radio shows in America that is dedicated to this topic known as Bitcoin, a show where you're going to learn about things like where does money come from? How does it apply to our freedom? And is history some kind of thing we need to learn about when it comes to money and maybe even the future? And, there's technology, there's energy, there's so much that goes on in this space. And that's why we do this show. And today we have a very, very interesting topic, a very interesting guest and show for you. So I hope you stick around. If you've been into this idea of sound money, like the whole sound money movement, you've probably heard the phrase like a new world order, right? But what does that really mean? Is there like some kind of shady collective group out there that's trying to push us to some one world government? Or the other thought is it just a coincidence? I mean, are there even, people with inside this movement, or are there factions of people fighting against each other? It's all possible, but more importantly, is it a spiritual battle for the minds, hearts, and energy of men? A lot of people can argue many of these viewpoints around this topic, but one thing is for certain, my friends. Conspiracy or not, money is a tool, and we've talked about this countless times on the show, but money is a tool that represents our time, labor, energy, and freedom. And if this tool of economic energy is compromised either intentionally or otherwise, it becomes, in my opinion, a form of slavery. And what's worse is that many people can't see these invisible chains of debt on their life force and time, right? It becomes this vehicle that just sucks the wealth and life from the everyday Joe and gives it to an unelected elite at the top who create the money or who are close to that money creator. So again, this show, you are going to be, if you're unfamiliar with some of these concepts, welcome. This is going to be eye-opening for you. And go back, listen to some of my past shows, because we've had countless conversations in this direction. So hopefully you'll find this very interesting. But on today's show, we've got an anonymous insider who has sat around true tables of power at a very young age and has personally heard things that might shock you. But the question is, what does she really know? What has she heard personally from maybe family members, the seats of power, friends? Can she shed some kind of light on the future of money or where the world is going? I want you to stick around and find out, because we're going to dive into her story. It's going to be really juicy. But first, before we get into the details of the nitty gritty, I need to give a shout out to my producer, Brian LaRue. He's not here in the room with me right now, but if you heard that awesome intro and even our outros, and if you think this show sounds really, really good, production value wise, hit him up at beyonduproductions.com, because this guy, he's for hire. And so if you want to do a podcast, a radio show, maybe you're a musician and you want some tracks mixed, he's the guy to go see. So beyonduproductions.com. I encourage you to go check him out. All right. Without any further delay, today in studio, we have this anonymous insider who knows a thing or two about what has transpired in our money system, but what also might be coming in the future. And for her safety, we are going to call her in honor, Miss Satoshi, in honor of the mysterious founder of Bitcoin called Satoshi Nakamoto. So, Miss Satoshi, for our listeners here, who are either in Los Angeles, Atlanta, Seattle, or online or beyond, really, we want you to share with them maybe some background information that you might find fascinating about yourself. But I want you to, just describe yourself in your own words. What can you share about yourself?
Hi, Matt. First, it's so nice to be here. This is really a pleasure, and happy to be here.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited to have you in that seat because I think this is going to be a fun conversation. But without divulging too much information, how would you describe yourself? You're obviously passionate about the space, right?
I am. I'm still new to it. I'm significantly older than you are and most of the people in the Bitcoin and digital asset and blockchain space. So you and your audience know far more than I do. My perspective has been my dad was CEO of 6 different Fortune 500s. So my perspective comes from a C-suite level in business and in finance. So the blockchain and Bitcoin is new and something that I've embraced, and I'm trying to learn about it.
So that background of your father's involvement in the C-suite of these big companies, and your understanding and involvement in the world of finance, obviously Bitcoin blockchain technology was did it come naturally as a curiosity to you because of that?
Gosh, so many years ago, probably I didn't find out about it really probably until 2013 or 14. And that is a story all by itself. But then I went to my dad and I said, hey, because he sat on boards of banks and stuff too. And I said, hey, what is this? My son had purchased some at a young age. And I thought, what is this? So I went to my dad and I said, what is this? And he said, no, let me call you back. He called me back and he said, no, stay away from it. It's
really?
Not, yeah. I don't know anything enough, but my buddies, my boardroom says, no, don't touch it. Okay. But he was, well, by then my son had already had some. And so it was in my mind already. And kind of years passed and I would continue I read a lot. I don't watch TV. I would read a lot, and then I would continue to hear blockchain and Bitcoin. So soon I was following what was being taught in universities. Yeah. And then realized, no, this is something that I need to pay attention to. So that just kind of evolved. Okay,
but let's back it up here. Your dad, being the influencer that he was in these Fortune, was it 500 companies, right? Fortune 600 companies.
No, Fortune 500, six different
Fortune 500 companies.
In different industry, right.
And he's been on a lot of boards, obviously very well connected. And when you brought up the topic about Bitcoin or blockchain technology, was it one of those things where he was dismissing it because they just really didn't know anything about it, or because there was something that they didn't like about it?
He didn't know enough about it at the time. And again, this was like 13 or 14.
Right.
But then, he was like, look, I don't understand it personally, but keep going down that rabbit hole. You'll find something. So
well, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's talk about this. Okay. So you mentioned generations here. But in my opinion, you stand out a lot, because, is it safe to say that you're part of the baby boomer generation?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, and second, the thing that I find interesting is the depth in which you've explored cryptocurrency is pretty cool, because you've even done this process called a coin join, right?
Yes.
Okay. I personally haven't done one of those. So how did you find yourself wanting to experiment in these new and unique processes in the cryptocurrency space? You're just naturally curious, hey, I just want to try it? Very.
My kids say that I'm chronically curious about things. So when I'm wanting to know something, I will just continue to take that deep dive.
Right.
Until whatever it is, makes
Right.
sense to me. So, yeah, I've found myself just like this. It's this whole new world.
Right.
It's fascinating.
Well, okay.
It is a new vocabulary. You
Yeah.
know, like for my generation, I would suggest that you kind of grew up with computers and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know anything. You were being taught that as part of your education in school, and it was just organic. My generation, it wasn't organic. So it was new vocabulary. It was new terms, new, hardware. It was a new machine, a machine that we had to learn to understand. And to people that are my age and older, I try and tell them that it's, in essence, the same thing.
Well, and you make a good point. I mean, education is part of the reason why we do this show, and because we're casting a wide net, trying to reach an older audience to get them exposed to the idea of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. But I want to dive into this idea real quick here, which is we're using an alias because we want to protect what you've experienced, but liberty, freedom, obviously is important to me. And you've obviously seemed very passionate on that side of things, because I'm pretty sure Bitcoin and the idea of monetary sovereignty was kind of attractive to you. Am I correct on that?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that I believe there is no freedom at all without financial freedom.
Right.
It transcends
Right.
everything.
But is it safe to say that because of the way that you were brought up, or the people that you're around, the tables you sat around, obviously there were some big players, some position of power, and you've probably had conversations with many people, even your father, and when you were around, did you sit around tables with U.S. presidents?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say which ones?
No.
Okay. All right. So it's safe to say that you have sat around some tables with U.S. presidents, some CEOs.
Well, they were family friends.
Family friends, right? And that is not that is not common. It's a very unique way to experience life, right? And so I can only imagine being a fly on the wall in these rooms or at the tables, or just these backroom conversations, however you want to put it. I want you to kind of share a little bit about that. And even there was a gentleman by the name of, can I say the other guy that influenced your life perspective here? I'm gonna mute myself and no, actually I'm not gonna bring it up. Okay. But I'm gonna say the United Nations. Is there any familiarity there?
Oh, a lot.
A lot. And where's that? How does that familiarity come into play?
I mean, my father, he was part of the Business Council for the United Nations for many, many years. So Davos, UN, all of those things were part of his sphere.
So the conversation of the global governance of sorts was a common topic that you heard and were a part of, right?
Right.
Okay. I'm this personal subscriber to this idea that there is some kind of either organized or unorganized cohort of power of people that are trying to do their best to consolidate things, because I think human nature is naturally geared to pull in power as much as possible. And I think that's why I love Bitcoin, is because it's decentralized, right? It's decentralized. And even the idea of the American founding and having a decentralized republic, all these ideas are great because the natural inclination of man is to consume and consolidate power. But, what's been your personal experience? How does you being in these conversations, hearing these people who have very significant roles, or even being at tables with U.S. presidents, was there ever talk about trying to, bring forth some consolidation or some world?
Well, I think that's just as you said, and I think it is kind of human nature, right?
Right.
And it is real. It's not a conspiracy as much as the media tries to tell us that it is. It's not. it's true. There is a consolidation of power, and it is on a global level.
Right.
And that's the goal. And I, both for social and financial issues and control. And I think Bitcoin is a little disruptive to that.
Yeah. But why is that the goal, you think? I mean, from this cohort.
I think it's human nature.
Okay. So it's not like this, it's not like a nefarious effort to try to usher in this one world government.
No, I think the powers that be, I think they feel like they can help manage people better than people manage themselves.
Right. That makes sense.
I don't know if I have that right, but I think that's probably right.
I get it. I mean, it's the nature of the administrative state, you know.
We can help you. We'll provide this. We'll do this for you. We'll,
So, we got 2 minutes roughly before we got to go to break here, but did sitting around these conversations and these tables and being a fly on the wall and meeting these people, did it upset you at all? Because did your values differ from what they were trying to achieve or trying to do, but you were passionate in the other direction?
Yeah, actually it did. But I didn't, conversations, and this goes back, right, my lifespan, and but I remember when, the businesses would, we can't have the manufacturing here in the U.S. We've got to send it globally. And I found that very frustrating, conversations that I would have with my dad. Why aren't we creating the jobs here? Why aren't we doing this? Well, we can't. The U.S. is overregulated, and we're regulated so that we can't do it here. So then we prop up other countries to the detriment of U.S., and that was always unsettling to me. It still is.
Yeah. Well, but was that regulation on purpose so that could happen?
I mean, I look back and I think that was obvious.
Right.
I don't know that part. It sure seemed obvious.
Just by perception then, basically.
For sure. And reality, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it really was happening.
For sure. No, absolutely. Well, yeah, I've got a boatload of other questions here, but obviously this message of financial sovereignty, liberty, freedom, decentralization really hits home with you. And, I really, when we come back from break, I want to dive into kind of like why you differ in your thought process in this, or why you didn't drink the administrative Kool-Aid or the UN Kool-Aid, especially being in some of those circles. I really want to explore that story. So when we come back, would you be willing to share that perspective?
You bet.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, guys, if you're listening to this show on the radio, I want you to stay put. You might be on the edge of your seat here, but we've got a lot more coming. And call up a friend. Tell them to tune in, because we're going to continue this conversation. And hopefully, we got to stay somewhat anonymous here, but I'm going to try to pull out as much juice as I can here so we can have a great conversation. But no matter what platform you're using, if you're listening online, Spotify, YouTube, we're all over the place. Like, comment, subscribe. I want you to be a part of the conversation. Go to my website, mattjmoore.com. You can send me a message, an email. I really want you guys to be a part of this because, hey, we're doing this show for you. We're trying to start a conversation. We're trying to start a dialogue because we have a lot to learn, and that's why I bring these wonderful guests into the studio. So stay put. We're going to commercial break, but we're going to be right back. This is Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf.
800-262-4182. 800-262-4182. That's 800-262-4182.
Okay, I'm talking funny because I'm in the witness protection program. I have too much credit card debt and I don't want people to find me.
Okay, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about credit card debt. Right, those plastic things that we all have in our wallet. Are you in your 50s or 60s and you're still carrying around a mound of credit card debt? Wouldn't it be nice to start banking that money and save a little money for retirement down the road? We help people restructure their credit card debt all the time. We show people how they can get out of credit card debt in months, not years. Listen, you'll be carrying around credit card debt for the rest of your life unless you deal with it right now. We offer a free consultation so you can learn how you can finally wipe out your credit card debt and start saving money. Give us a free call right now.
Call Debt Solutions Network now. 800-593-0298. 800-593-0298. That's 800-593-0298.
What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Short-form video content is taking over social media, and with only seconds to capture someone's attention, our team can help you stand out from the crowd. At Sooner Marketing Solutions, we'll produce and publish engaging TikToks, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. If you feel like you're falling to the wayside and missing out on the exposure that you deserve, click the link in the description to get Sooner results now.
And we are back. Ding, 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 ding. This is round 2 of America's Bitcoin-focused radio show. That's right, everybody. You are at the right spot at the right time, because whether you are a Bitcoin lover, newbie, or expert, we have a little bit of something for everybody. And I even want to welcome all you skeptics, all you haters, because we hope you stick around. We hope that maybe I'm not saying I'm going to convince you anything, but maybe I'll get that light bulb going, and maybe it'll be your idea, right? That's usually how it works. But again, we are one of America's only syndicated radio shows that's dedicated to that topic of Bitcoin, a show where you're going to learn about money, liberty, history, technology, energy, and we always bring on phenomenal guests who have some really interesting things to say, and today is no exception. Today's show, we've been talking with an anonymous insider who we're going to protect their identity, who has had a very unique upbringing that put her around some tables of significant circles of power. We're talking U.S. presidents, we're talking UN officials. She's heard some things that most people haven't heard, or especially like being in these rooms or circles. These are just things you kind of hear when you're a fly on the wall, right? Sometimes, or even maybe you're even part of the conversation. But I'm bringing her in today because I really feel like she's got some important information that she can share with us. This stuff has kind of shaped her forever. Along with kind of like her outlook on money, the future of the world, why she kind of differs in this policy idea, moving away from globalization when maybe her past relatives were more towards, or going to this UN Kool-Aid, this global Kool-Aid, right? That we all kind of have a problem with here in America. I mean, at least a handful of us do. But the question, though, is there really some kind of shady collective group out there trying to push us to that global order? I mean, are we going to have a one world, money system at one point? Is that the objective? How does Bitcoin fit into this picture? Well, we're going to ask the question, what does this insider know? What has she heard personally? And if you were around for the first segment of the show, we are calling her Miss Satoshi. That's her anonymous name that we were giving her today in honor of the mysterious founder of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. All right. So, Ms. Satoshi, since this is radio and people are constantly tuning in at random times, maybe they're jumping in their car, maybe they're at home, maybe they just turned on the radio. How do you describe yourself in your own words? What can you share with everybody?
Oh my gosh. Well, my standard line is I'm a mom. I've got 2 kids. And otherwise, I'm chronically curious. For a lifetime, have been surrounded with following global macroeconomic issues and kind of following the money. That's how I've kind of grown up, and that's how I see the world. So I don't know that it answers your question.
No, it does. I mean, it does. I mean, because we can't really...
hate to get into the nuances of where I was born and all of that.
Well, we can't divulge into some of those details just for safety reasons. But I need to go ahead and make the point that, as we were kind of coming into this second segment here, you have sat around tables with U.S. presidents, UN officials, executives of these massive companies, and overall, there was kind of this collective idea or just a general thesis or maybe even a plan, I don't know, of moving things offshores, growing this idea of globalization, growing this idea of global government. So it was intentional to some degree, and it's happening and has happened. But you're obviously passionate about Bitcoin, decentralization, freedom, liberty, personal monetary sovereignty. So why did you yourself, running in some of these circles, running with some of these players, growing up, why did your perspective differ or change so much from maybe what your life experience taught you?
So both sets of grandparents, my father's dad was in World War II, stormed Normandy, boots on the ground, was blown up, came back to the U.S. and went back for Battle of the Bulge. I had, family that was in World War I. We always seemed to be, as a nation, helping other countries gain their sovereignty and independence and their financial freedom for their people. And then manufacturing seemed to be getting over-regulated here in the U.S. and shipped abroad. We were losing jobs. We were losing financial freedom. We were losing the middle class and the kind of losing potential for people to make a living and support their family with pride. And we've become dependent. And I think that happened I don't know what the motivation was other than a consolidation of power. So
you can't really clarify. You know the consolidation of power, that movement in that direction was happening. But
it for sure was.
It was happening, but you don't know necessarily 100% if it was intentional or just a byproduct of events unfolding. Or maybe a little bit of both?
It definitely was, it's all been coordinated. That's not a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What are your thoughts on like these groups, like the Bilderberg Group, or like the Council of Foreign Relations, or like there's I'm not trying to be Alex Jones here, but what I am trying to say is that there are meetings and collective conversations and agendas at these very elite groups.
Yeah, and we're not invited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the way that it is, but that's
right.
That's
but
how things have been.
But do you think those groups in themselves have had that agenda to move it in that direction of a global order?
Well, I don't think so.
You know so. Right. Yeah. Okay. And you know so because you knew some people that were in those circles, right?
Right.
Right.
And was that... They would even say that, you don't have to dive in too far to read their writings to get that verification.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well,
it's not a conspiracy, although I think sometimes media likes to
sensationalize things, right? That usually is...
It's factual. Let's just go off of facts.
Right. Well, and if let's be honest here. Whether it's mainstream media or even an individual who has an agenda, right? Okay, everybody to some degree has an agenda, but even if the facts are true, if the information is out there, right? people can spend things or maybe share just a little bit and not everything in order to help their own agenda or move things forward. So you really kind of got to do your homework. You really got to talk to people who've kind of been in some of these circles. And I mean, obviously there are records out there you can read, right? But it's just fascinating how we live in a world with so much information, right? But we almost have to become, it's like, I always tell people like, hey, when you're sick, you can listen to your doctor, but a lot of times it's better for you to become your own doctor in the sense that you're seeing multiple doctors, you're doing your own research, you're putting dots together. Like, people just don't want to do the critical thinking. People don't want to do the work.
It requires work, doesn't it?
It does.
And there's a lot of things people are sidetracked with right now.
Right.
And A. B, I don't think that people, and I don't mean to criticize education, but we aren't learning through traditional, what historically was traditional learning. I mean, if somebody wants to learn about finance, they're not going to learn about it in middle school or high school.
Right.
And that requires their own time to dig in. And then you go down that rabbit hole. Am I reading the right things? Am I researching the right things?
Yeah, no, they're not. I mean, it's almost intentional, in my opinion, since we live in a fiat money world that was set up many, many years ago. To me, they don't teach the things about sound money, what is constitutional money, where money comes from, how it's created, why all of this stuff is so important. It's just never, I mean, if you go down the street and ask somebody why this green piece of paper has value, nobody's really got an answer, right? Like, and you got to start at fundamentals. You got to start at ground zero. Like, what is money? What truly is it? But here's what I've said multiple times on this show, and I want to get your opinion on this. Politics is often downstream from culture, and culture often dictates politics, right? However, culture itself, in my opinion, is downstream from money creation. If, here's my thinking on this. It is those that are closest to the money printers that can often influence culture, which then influences politics. Easy money, like fiat dollars that we have today, can literally be created out of thin air by an unelected elite group, which allows for power to be consolidated without many even noticing. And if they do notice, they can't figure out why it's happening. So do you agree with this sentiment that, that all of this kind of like fiat money system, the ability to have this elite cartel of banks from the Federal Reserve and those closest to that cartel, that money creation often starts at the top at a certain place and trickles down, and by the time it gets to us, you got the velocity of money picks up, and then by the time we get to spend that money, it's already lost value because the marketplace is like, hey, there's more money in the system now, we got to raise our prices. But the people who got that money first got to buy assets with it before the prices got up. So essentially it's kind of like this wealth transfer. But if you're at the top of that pyramid or closest to the money printer, maybe what if you do have an agenda to globalize the world? What if you do have an agenda to influence culture or to influence politics, right? Easy money allows for that. The money printer allows for that. Fiat money allows for that. Governments hate sound money like gold and silver traditionally because it kind of put handcuffs on them on what they could spend. I mean, we got a world where we can now spend money on social programs we can't afford, wars we can't fight. What's your thought on this? Like, is this why you're excited about Bitcoin? Is because it brings us back to a sound money policy or an idea?
Well, it leads the way, doesn't it? Throughout history, there have always been, always been a power structure of powerful people that have wanted to control the monetary system.
Yeah, I mean,
and that rings true. I mean, we can look at the people. Well, for example, like Goldman Sachs alumni populate so many positions in advisory roles managing the United States monetary policy and the Fed. Mm-hmm. They're great people. They're smart people, but they're rather circular, right? I mean, they are the ones, not just Goldman Sachs, but there are the power and control is in very few. You're right, and unelected.
Yeah, and because, I mean, if you think about it, if you look at the Federal Reserve System, you've got the Federal Reserve, you got the U.S. Treasury, but then you got these mega banks, these primary dealer banks that, go to auction and buy these U.S. Treasuries, and they turn around and sell them to the Federal Reserve. Presto, money is created. So the big banks are kind of like these middlemen in the Federal Reserve System, buying this stuff up. And like you said, there's this circular door that goes from the Federal Reserve to these big banks, to the U.S. Treasury, to the U.S. government, whatever, right? All these people know each other. They're very close. And what's unique about this is that the fiat money system, like I said, it almost incentivizes this consolidation of power and money.
What's interesting? In like 2016 or 2017, the big banks got together and they wrote a white paper on Ethereum. And I read the paper and realized the banks were contemplating that money could take different forms than the centralized fiat that we've had, and that those in control will do everything in their power to stay in control.
Yeah.
But the fact that large banks, hedge funds were exploring this, and they're buying these.
Yeah.
That they're buying. But yet then the media says, oh, it's horrible. And then we have now we've got Gary Gensler, we've got Gary Gensler, we've got, the SEC. Aren't they really just taking the digital assets away from the retail while institutional continues to buy it?
Right.
And that is what happens with power.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely winners, losers, and favorites that are played. On the last show that I had, I was just saying, as like, as somebody who is very libertarian-minded in focus here, I feel like it's almost unfair because Gary Gensler with Coinbase specifically, the SEC allowed Coinbase to IPO, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
they allowed a broker who was selling unregistered securities to IPO, and then now they're going to hit them with these lawsuits here.
Okay, and Gary was Sam Bankman-Fried's professor at MIT. I mean, you just start going down these rabbit holes. By the way, I had watched it when the MIT classes were being taught by Gary. I was listening to those. I was watching those. I was learning. So obviously, Bitcoin is disruptive to the fiat system. We're in a time right now too where everybody's getting an ESG or DEI score and so forth. The fiat paper system is not very inclusive on a global level.
No.
So Bitcoin changes that.
It does.
And that alone is a reason why, if somebody really cared about what's going on in poverty-stricken countries, we go over there on mission work, right? And we think we're gonna help, but they stay in poverty.
Yeah.
Doesn't Bitcoin change that?
Okay, most certainly can, and
Sure.
We're
seeing that happen.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I love the fact that El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as its national currency and the plans that they have moving forward here. But, to your point, I mean, it's like we could talk about the fiat money system sucking wealth and energy from the average citizen, but it's also, the dollar system is also doing that from other countries. All fiat money systems are essentially failing, just the dollar's not failing quite as fast per se. It's the cleanest shirt in that dirty laundry bin, right? That's why people are, they have that theory about the milkshake, the dollar milkshake theory and whatnot. But Bitcoin, I think, changes the dynamic of the world order monetarily, and I think that's why you're probably excited about it. What would you tell people with what you know, with what you've seen and heard growing up, and where the world is going? Obviously, we are at a point in history where things are going to massively change.
Yeah, a CBDC is coming, right?
Right.
I mean, where they want to do away with, it's not a conspiracy.
Right.
Cash is out.
Yep.
And so the central bank digital currency is coming in. And then do we really want somebody, I personally don't want somebody telling me that I am not allowed to buy that, whatever
Right.
that is. I don't want that. I appreciate that somebody might care, but
Right.
I can take care of myself. I don't need it. I sent my son was young, and I sent him over to China for 3 summers when he was in high school so that he could be learning Mandarin and be exposed to different things. The tracking and tracing and programmability, it's real. It's not, nobody's making that up.
And they want to do it here in America.
They want to do it here in America. They want to do it elsewhere.
And Bitcoin is a digital world that's opposite of that.
Sure, there's a whole ecosystem now, right?
Right.
I mean, if I want to find a rancher that where I can buy beef, right, I can go peer-to-peer with him.
And nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's going to say, hey, you can't buy XY food because we think you're unhealthy or because your carbon footprint is getting too big because of what you're buying.
Yeah, all of that, I don't understand it. I understand the power behind it. I understand what they want to do. I can't relate in any way. Freedom matters, and
we're getting ready to go to break here, but I'm fascinated with just this conversation that we're having here. So hopefully, if you're listening to this show, maybe these ideas are new. I don't know. Maybe something Ms. Satoshi has said has struck your interest. But again, I want you guys to stick around and call up a friend. Tell them to tune in to this show, because we got some more stuff to cover. We got one more segment. And if you're listening online, like I said, be a part of that conversation because this is where it starts. Send it to a friend, share, comment, subscribe. We want you to be in on the action of what's taking place because things are changing. The world is changing, and I don't want people to get left behind. I want you to be part of the conversation. We'll be right back with Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf.
800-262-4182. 800-262-4182. That's 800-262-4182.
Okay, I'm talking funny because I'm in the witness protection program. I have too much credit card debt and I don't want people to find me.
Okay, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about credit card debt. Right, those plastic things that we all have in our wallet. Are you in your 50s or 60s and you're still carrying around a mound of credit card debt? Wouldn't it be nice to start banking that money and save a little money for retirement down the road? We help people restructure their credit card debt all the time. We show people how they can get out of credit card debt in months, not years. Listen, you'll be carrying around credit card debt for the rest of your life unless you deal with it right now. We offer a free consultation so you can learn how you can finally wipe out your credit card debt and start saving money. Give us a free call right now.
Call Debt Solutions Network now. 800-593-0298. 800-593-0298. That's 800-593-0298.
What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Short-form video content is taking over social media, and with only seconds to capture someone's attention, our team can help you stand out from the crowd. At Sooner Marketing Solutions, we'll produce and publish engaging TikToks, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. If you feel like you're falling to the wayside and missing out on the exposure that you deserve, click the link in the description to get Sooner results now.
Well, guess what? You are back in the saddle with cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. I want to welcome you back, America. It is round 3, that's right, of America's Bitcoin-focused radio show. And whether, like I said, whether you know something or nothing, or maybe you know a lot, this show is for everybody. And we want to welcome you because, again, we're one of the only syndicated radio shows in America that is dedicated to this topic. And we try so hard to bring some information that will educate you, maybe entertain you, enlighten you, give you some new ideas. But today we have had a wonderful conversation, and it's with somebody what I would consider maybe an anonymous insider who's had a very unique upbringing that put her around some significant circles of power. And the conversations that she was either personally a part of or heard has shaped her forever, along with her outlook on the money her outlook on money and the future of the world at large. And if you've been listening today, I'm sure you've been both maybe shocked or encouraged or maybe informed. But I do want to dive back in with her because we got limited time here before we got to close out the show. This is our last segment. But today in studio, we have the Anonymous Insider. And for her safety, we're going to just call her Miss Satoshi in honor of the mysterious founder of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. Miss Satoshi, let's jump back into it. We got a lot to cover before we go to break here or before we close out the show. You know, you have grown up, been around and involved in some circles and conversations of places of power. You've met U.S. presidents, you've met UN officials, these big executives in these companies. You've even been to some events that most people don't go to. But I want you to share. You have a different perspective and outlook on things. You haven't necessarily drank that global Kool-Aid, and there's maybe some things that upset you in which, some of these power players have tried to push things or take things. But what is your prediction? Because you have some insider information here. What's your thoughts and prediction on the future of money and society at large? What do we need to be worried about?
We know, right, the FedNow coin is going to launch. We know that under Executive 14067 last year with Biden, that outlined the CBDC. So that'll launch as a FedNow coin. We have areas around the world that are already experimenting with universal basic income. Isn't that in essence what we're doing now in the U.S.?
Yeah.
I just find that troubling. I find it troubling.
Well,
not because I don't want to support those people, but I think people feel better when they're able to provide for their own family, right? There's a sense of pride that comes along with being productive.
Yeah, but that universal basic income, what people don't catch is if it's this CBDC, right? Like a central bank digital currency, right? Well, what happens is, okay, we're going to send you money every month, but if you don't buy the things at a certain time point, or maybe you can only buy certain things with this money,
right?
You are essentially, and hey, we can take out your taxes instantly. We can, penalize you maybe. So there's a lot of caveats. It's like, hey, here's a carrot, but with this carrot comes some chains, and you may not be able to spend or use your money the way that you want to.
Right.
Right.
It's not a conspiracy. It's reality.
And Bitcoin is not that way and for a digital world. And that's why we're excited about Bitcoin.
That's right. It does give a sense of freedom, right? It does offer some hope, a way maybe out of all of the globalization and a sense of freedom and prosperity on our own.
Well, what else? What other thoughts do you think we need to be aware of? Because, that's why I want you to share. We can't share too much because, you're trying to protect your identity here. But where do you see this is going? Are we in trouble?
Well, are you talking about the ability to buy Bitcoin and other digital assets?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on
SEC? Well, what I call wave one, right, was Gemini, Kraken, Coinbase, BlockFi, now Crypto.com, Bitstamp.
Operation Choke Point? Is this what this is?
For sure, right? It's happening. And then so it's going to make it difficult, and I think purposefully difficult for the average person to figure out how to buy into Bitcoin. So then that creates the next layer where you're going to your institution, you're going to JP Morgan, you're going to Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley to then get your Bitcoin. Well, then it's kind of centralized again. But it's an option, right? But it's not going to be an option if you've got a CBDC, if you're dependent upon, and if somebody's telling you what you can and cannot purchase.
Which is scary in itself.
Well, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah.
We're probably not used to somebody telling us that we can't go buy a package of chewing gum. It's not in our allowance right now.
So
that's the unsettling thing.
So you said that was wave one?
Wave one, I think, was Gemini, Kraken, Coinbase, BlockFi, Bitstamp.
Them failing
Crypto.com.
or being regulated.
Right. We came under the legislation or not legislation. We're suddenly under new scrutiny with Gary Gensler, right? Isn't he being told what to do?
Sure, yeah. He's
by the big banks, right?
Yeah.
Although he was the one that was teaching this space to the young kids.
Right. So what's wave 2 and 3? Or are there waves
I
2
think
and 3?
that, when somebody wants to, I think the price is going to be kept artificially down, right? As there's a lot of FUD, right? So it keeps most people out of it. Well, this gives the institutions time to buy, right? So and then, go ahead.
No, so in essence, in your opinion, what's happening now in the regulatory space, in the news space, the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, all this stuff is playing because the global cohort of power realizes Bitcoin is a disruptor, Bitcoin is a problem, and we've got to try to do our best to wrap our hands around this so we can still kind of be the issuer of power as best as we can. So we're going to try to push it the way we want. So we're kind of like in the they fight you now stage, and because they realize Bitcoin is something that's not going away, you can't stop it.
When the Fortune 50 and Fortune 100s, when they're buying Bitcoin, right? When they've got it on their assets.
Right. Don't listen to what they're saying, watch what they're doing, right?
Absolutely true, right? That's in everything. Yeah. And with everybody.
Yeah.
And you know what? You could, the colleges that are teaching right now about blockchain and Bitcoin, you've got MIT, right? You've got Columbia, Harvard, Cornell, Duke, NYU, Northeastern, Stanford, Cal Berkeley, Oxford, UT. Those are just some. These prestigious colleges would not be teaching this if it were not disruptive.
Right. Well, and it's not going away.
And it's not going away.
It's not going away. We are in the middle of a power struggle.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Right.
The old order versus this new order that has come up through the grassroots, decentralized.
Right. And where else would you stick your money right now?
Right.
It's not like the S&P. Well, I guess they're going to print more money. So this, so there's like
until they can't anymore.
There's going to be a bounce. Although I don't know how that's going to be the case. It's not like we're really manufacturing anything.
Right. It's all going to be artificial. Right.
Right. And so I don't really know how that's going to work out. Maybe that'll look promising for a while. Yeah. But what kind of return can you really get there? So really, if people go to casinos.
Right.
I kind of feel like people should be allowed to try and experiment with this space.
Right.
How is it any different?
I agree.
I'm not a casino person or a gambler, but maybe some think that I am based on my interest in Bitcoin and blockchain and other.
Well, we got about a minute before we got to go to break.
I've enjoyed this so much.
Time runs out, but tell me what your favorite books or videos are. What do you recommend people to do when it comes to learning?
I do like to read a lot. The Art of War, I think that's a good book.
Yeah.
Intelligent Investor, I think that's great. I learned a lot from like Digital Gold and Inside the Story of the Misfits and Millionaires Trying to Reinvent Money. That was a great book. One called Debt, Updated and Expanded the First 5,000 Years.
Okay.
That was interesting. Of course, the Book of Satoshi. Let's see, Bitcoin and Crypto Technologies. That's great.
Yeah.
Mastering Bitcoin, and probably the last one, The Truth Machine, the blockchain and the future of everything. Everything will be built on the blockchain.
Yes.
I mean, everything from your mortgage to deeds to everything is going to be on the blockchain. I just want people to understand the space, enjoy it, learn.
Yes, and she makes a great point. It's all going to change. The world is changing. Don't get left behind. Prepare yourself for this new digital age. That's why you need to listen to the show. Miss Satoshi, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing what you could. And until next time, my friends, I will see you the same time, same place. Bye-bye.